All right, good morning. Before I take a few of your questions, I want to take a few minutes to highlight the preliminary Finance Department budget plan that was presented before the Board of Estimates this morning. Joining me for this announcement are the Finance Director for Baltimore City, Henry Raymond, and Baltimore's Budget Director, Andrew Klein. Thank you both for being here. Getting to today's budget plan has not been easy. As we first discussed earlier this winter, our preliminary budget estimates projected a gap between revenues and continuing expenses of somewhere between $60 million and $75 million. There are a number of explanations for this gap, ranging from the huge increase in the cost of prescription drugs and pension investments for employees, to the expenses of running the popular Charm City Circulator, to the inflationary increases in operating city services. The bottom line is that while we were able to make a number of key strategic investments, this budget also reflects tough choices. There are services and programs that all of us wish we could continue uninterrupted or even expand. But first and foremost, from the first day that I became mayor, I have been committed to making the responsible choices for our city's long-term fiscal health. This is why we created the 10-year financial plan, and we've made tough choices on pension reform, on retiree health care, and so many other things. Without those hard decisions, the $60 million shortfall that this budget closes would have been more than 3 times as bad, nearly $200 million. So in the days ahead, as we talk about the difficult choices that this budget presents, we cannot forget the progress that we have made together, and we can't ignore the fiscal discipline that was required to get us here. Without that continued discipline, our city would not have the highest combined bond rating in 50 years, enabling us to borrow more money cheaply for capital projects and reducing the interest payment we must make to banks and to Wall Street. We also would not have been in the position to sustain not one but 2 significant rainy day fund events, the unrest of last April and the record-breaking snowstorm of this past January. For cities without our record of responsible financial choices, either of those events could have been enough to push their budgets toward the brink of insolvency. But thanks to this team here, our budget team, we were prepared for those unexpected expenses, and we were able to absorb those challenges and more. The $1.7 billion general fund budget that we are presenting for fiscal 2017 represents a modest 2.4% increase over fiscal 2016. In terms of general fund positions, we continue shrinking our workforce to the smallest level in modern times, down another 2%, or 186 positions, to slightly under 9,400 positions. This budget expands our commitment to the city's public schools, providing $10.4 million above the required level by the annual maintenance of effort formula. The additional money aims to help the system bridge a financial gap created by the recently discovered enrollment error. I also expect the school system will use this bridge as a time to focus on making some long overdue decisions on improving its internal finances, including adjusting some expensive employee and retiree benefits to bring them in line with other Baltimore City public employees, as well as public employees across the country. We're also investing in our youngest children through funding for 8 positions in Be More for Healthy Babies program to make up for cuts that are happening at the state level. We're putting more money into our Department of Recreation and Parks to pay for the operations of the new and expanded recreation centers opening this coming year. That money is expected to come directly from casino table games as we continue to benefit from expanded gaming in Maryland. We're maintaining our $6.2 million base funding for after-school funding through the Family League, though unfortunately we are not able to sustain the one-time expanded funding that we put in place last spring. We are making hard choices in the area of public safety, including saving nearly $20 million through salary savings of more than 225 vacant positions in the police department. At the same time, we're making critical investments in the area of public safety, such as adding personnel to our crime lab to better help solve crimes and ensure prosecutions have the evidence necessary for courtroom convictions. We're keeping all of our fire stations open and in operation, continuing the decision that I made to end the practice of rotating closures. We're providing the funding necessary to see through two significant initiatives begun this spring: our municipal trash can program and the body-worn cameras for our police department. A year ago, you may recall that we faced tough choices around reducing the service for our Charm City circulator. At the time, we pledged to come back this year with a plan to make the circulator sustainable over the long term. Today, we are asking the council to boost the city's parking tax rate up 4 percentage points to 24%, with the money dedicated to the Charm City circulator. This tax rate would be consistent with many other cities our size, and it would enable us to both cover the operational costs of the circulator and prepare for the long-term capital investments that will ultimately be needed to have a sustainable program. As I have previously announced, we are committed to continuing my plan to cut our property tax rate 20 cents by 2020 for residential homeowners. This year's budget proposal includes the next installment of that cut. I want to end with a final thought about the tough choices for this budget. More than once, I've heard suggestions that I ought to encourage my budget team to make overly optimistic assumptions for this, my final budget as mayor. After all, my term ends midway through this budget year, and if those assumptions were to fall short, it would be the next mayor's problem. But that's not who I am, nor does it match my philosophy of proper governance. From the time I became mayor, and remember, I immediately faced a budget crisis amid the Great Recession, I vowed to leave this city's budget in better shape than was left for me. We will not kick the can down the road for the next mayor. We will make the tough choices here, now, and even if those choices are universally unpopular. As we make those tough choices, we can see the smart, strategic investments to improve services for taxpayers. And I believe that this budget accomplishes that. And I look forward from hearing from the taxpayers and working with the City Council over the coming months as we finalize the budget for fiscal year 2017. With that, I will open it up and say thank you and take some questions. We'll do the budget questions first, and then if you don't have any budget questions, we can move on and they can leave.
So the 4.2 million cut in the one-time supplement, why is that a decision that you stand behind? There's some advocates who are obviously disappointed.
Well, I made it clear when we made the investment last year that we had a very tough year last year, and we tried to, we worked with the City Council to identify funds so we could have additional programs for young people. We even worked to make sure that those funds went to grassroots organizations to put them in a better position to apply for the funds that we channel through, the city funds that we channel through the Family League. The reality is that money, it was not, as I said when we did it, this was not an ongoing expense. This was a one-time expense. And it was in response, as many things were, to the unrest that we had last year, and looking for ways that we could be responsive across the board, not just in employment programs and youth works and things like that, but across the board. And that's what we did. In a perfect world, there would be enough money for every single program that everyone to meet everyone's desires. We don't live in a perfect world. I have to deal in reality, and the reality is that with in paying for the unrest of April, paying for the storms that we had, that money just simply is not there.
But yet you are also making the $10.2 million investment in the schools, which apparently is a record high. What do you think about being able to find that money and what it means to
Well, the school, well, and that really goes to the point that we were making too about the 4.2. That's an additional expense that was not anticipated this budget year. And when it was clear that the city schools would face a significant budget shortfall because of the enrollment issue that they had, it was very clear that we needed to step in a major way. Just as we stepped in last year with the 4.2 for out of school time, we needed to step in this time to ensure that our schools were able to continue to make progress.
Mayor, the budget calls for, it looks like a 1% increase in the police budget, which is the smallest increase in a long time. What's your thinking there? I mean, this is obviously a topic of debate in the mayor's race about all the money that goes in that, the eggs that go in that basket at the expense of other baskets.
And the thing is, I think that's an interesting debate point with no solutions. When you say that we should cut the police budget, you should also be willing to say what you're willing to go without. Nobody's willing to say that. I don't hear one person saying exactly what it is that they would do without in order to make those responsible cuts. So I think it's silly to say, all this money is going to police and nothing is going to anything else if they don't have solutions. I don't have that luxury. I just can't run my mouth. I have to run a city. And when you run a city, you make tough decisions that make fiscal sense. And until people are willing to talk about specifically what things they're willing to cut, I think it is worthless political chatter.
Madam Mayor, for people who drive into the city, who park in the city, who don't use the city circulator, why should their parking taxes be going up to support the city circulator?
Parking taxes go up for a number of reasons. Supporting the circulator is just one of them. Parking taxes across the country are used to promote the use of public transportation, more sustainable transportation. And one of the ways that you create a disincentive for driving is to making driving more costly for those that do it. And the goal is to take advantage of those people that are coming into the city, using our city services while they're here. And we're trying to use those revenues to make the city more livable for those that live here and work here and play here. Any other budget questions?
Yeah, but there's no, according to the handout here, there's no fund revenue growth in terms of speed cameras. Where does the speed camera program stand? What kind of?
We put out an RFP for a new camera program, a new vendor. The bids came in late February. Those are being reviewed. We're hopeful that we will have a camera program up and running during fiscal 17. We know it will be a smaller program than what we had before. It may start with traffic cameras and then speed cameras later. All that said, given the history we've had over the past several years, the finance department, we decided it's best not to assume any revenue from this program until we actually see revenue coming in. So, when we talk about fiscal 18, it may be a different story. Hopefully it will be. In any case, this is a revenue source where there are related expenses for running the program. We need to cover those first. And in addition to that, we hope that revenues would gradually decline as people become more compliant with traffic safety laws.
And were you able to determine like a final number in preparing this budget, a final number in terms of how much the riots and unrest cost the city last year?
Well, we spent $15 million on the immediate response to the unrest. We have spent over $6 million to date on preparation and presence for the trial, the first trial. That included purchasing new updated gear for the police department as well as overtime expenses. And we anticipate some additional costs as there will be more trials during this fiscal year.
Mayor, if we could just ask one more budget question. If you look at the back end of the handout, the slideshow, et cetera, the city is still not on course to, at its current rate, not on course to solve a deficit over the long run, which has been a goal of yours.
Mm-hmm.
As you leave this job, later this year. What needs to be done by the next mayor and whomever else has power at that point to get the city on a sustainable course?
So I think I would refer you back to the 10-year financial plan. The 10-year financial plan put together a list of initiatives, decision points that could work to significantly, or that would work to significantly close that structural budget deficit. We've taken many of those steps, significant steps that have cut the structural deficit by more than half. But there are many things on there that have yet to be done. And my hope is that the next council and the next administration will take up that mantle and take up the challenge of doing the hard job of structural reform, structural fiscal reform.
What remains to be done? In your mind, what's the most important thing that needs to be done?
I think there are many things. I don't know if know the numbers.
Yeah. So, as you know, I've talked about in our briefings, we have, in total, when you include the health benefit reforms, everything, this administration has reduced long-term costs by over $1 billion. We've made significant headway in reducing the baseline deficit that we projected in the 10-year financial plan. We're showing now that have reduced that by 35%, and at the same time, we have invested $130 million more in our infrastructure. We've reduced the tax rate by 6.5% for homeowners. We've strengthened our balance sheet, vastly reducing our unfunded liabilities. And again, this is tremendous progress, especially when you consider just the constant and growing demands for city services. So I feel like we are in a good place. We do have a long way to go. Some of the initiatives that are still in the works, that are in the plan, they include further restructuring of our retiree health benefits. We are including savings from such actions in this budget, and we will be providing more details as we go forward. We're also going to be, as we rebid our active employee health benefit plans next spring. Again, this will be a new mayor, so we'll have these conversations, but the plan has been to make further changes there to reduce costs. One thing that's built into this budget that's additional savings over what you see in the slides is we have reached an agreement with our major nonprofits, nearly doubling their annual voluntary contributions from a little over $3 million to $6 million a year. We have a major investment we've made in a wellness program that we believe will be generating further savings in the future. You heard about the Voice over IP project. There'll be further workforce streamlining. And we've been, as we've discussed, we've been working with the school system, hoping that they will take more responsibility for the retiree health benefits of their employees going forward. So those are some of the things that are in the 10-year plan that we're still working on, that we hope the next mayor will take up if we don't complete them in this administration.
Thank you.
Can I just, I just want to correct the date for taxpayer night. I think I said April 14th at the BOE. It's April 12th, and we have what we call our budget pop-up, which is an educational event from 6 to 7, and then the taxpayer night hearing will be starting at 7 o'clock in the War Memorial Building.
We passed around releases with information on it to everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Henry. You're good?
All
right.
The board voted today on a settlement with Raymond Gray over the trading accident. His attorney says he's not going to accept that settlement. Why did the board decide to vote on the settlement?
For a number of reasons. The settlement committee met and made a determination that the $200,000 is believe it's a state cap, and we wanted to offer the max per the state cap. Make sure that money was submitted. It's out there. If the the family wanted to move forward and accept that was there. We understand that it doesn't end their ability to continue, but we did want to make it clear that we were fully invested in going to the max for the state cap.
How confident are you that in the changes that have been made in police training so that something like this won't happen again?
I don't think so. I'm certainly pleased with the changes that have been made, but confidence. I don't want to confuse confidence with complacency. This is something that you have to be vigilant about. You have to make sure that we're constantly improving training and challenging the leadership of the department to be better, to be safer. We don't ever want to see anything like this happen again.
What do you think about the charter amendments that are headed to the council floor to change the construction of the VOE?
I think they're ill-advised.
Will you
I'll veto them.
You will?
Yes.
What do you think it could create for a future administration and challenges to run the city?
I don't think it will enhance the ability for the city to conduct business at all. And I think it is, I just don't think it is a wise decision. I think that the council, the comptroller, the council president have immense powers through the budget process. And I know that when I was city council president and a member of the council, I used that power to enhance what I was able to do for my constituency. I believe that power still exists today without needing to change the charter. I don't think there's been any mayor that has been in my position that has supported that. And I know from my work with the Conference of Mayors, mayors that have a different form of government are looking to move toward the structure that we have, because it allows them to conduct business in a more efficient manner and to continue to push for progress.
So, considering that November is, I don't know how many months away, do you think that it's what do you think about the timing to try to push this through council now in advance of the 2016 ballot?
I mean, whether it's today, whether it's next month, I think it's ill-advised.
Okay.
The timing, I think it's certainly, there are enough other people that can comment on the timing of it. I just think it's a poor decision.
Madam Mayor, a vacant house collapsed a couple days ago. It hit someone in a car and killed them.
Mm-hmm.
According to the Sun article, and one of the neighbors was saying the house was leaning, it was separated from the other row homes. How does the city go about deciding which row homes to demolish at what time?
I know that we have a list of homes that have been inspected, and they get re-inspected on a regular basis. Because we know that just because a house might be leaning just slightly today doesn't mean in a month from now it won't be significantly different. With respect to the grading that the homes get and the regularity, the housing department we can get you that information from the housing department.
I mean, you talk a lot about vacancy values and how many homes you've demolished. Are there still just so many still out there that it's hard to?
I've made it very clear, even with quadrupling the investment that we've made under my administration in demolition of blight and abandoned homes, we still don't have enough money to tackle the issue in a way that I would like. But you have to understand, I don't have a secret money tree in the basement. I cannot write a blank check for these things. We are dealing with decades of blight, abandonment, and neglect, and trying to reprioritize our funding and the appropriations to address this in a comprehensive way. It didn't happen overnight. It's not going to change overnight, and the needs are not stagnant. So, just because I have a plan working on it doesn't mean that that we're not constantly dealing with an increasing problem.
Mayor, some of the mayors around the country have banned government travel to North Carolina in the wake of the emergency passage of the transgender bill.
Mm-hmm.
Have you contemplated such an action here?
We're definitely taking a look at it. That's something that I certainly the action taken by the North Carolina legislature is certainly not something that I support. I applaud the governor of Georgia, who had enough sense to look beyond the unfortunate divisive politics of his legislature and veto their bill that would have impacted the civil rights and the quality of life for the LGBT community in Georgia. And as we look to see what the appropriate response is, I'm certainly considering that as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Anybody else?
Do you have any thoughts that you'd share on the mayoral race? And
Nope.
Are you, do you anticipate endorsing ever?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.